Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the VRRC and the penultimate round of the Porsche Cup. Yes, it's week 7 of 8. We've got championships on the line. Mathematically, both classes, I think, could be wrapped up across tonight's 2 races. But if nothing else, our current championship leaders could use tonight's 2 25-minute encounters to at least put one hand on their respective championship trophies. Andy McEwen and Jack Oliphant here to talk you through all of the action from the circuit pour Ricard in the south of France. It's our second international visit of the season before we head to Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit for the final round in a week's time. Jack, hard to believe that we have raced through this championship, only the 2 weeks to go. Some fantastic racing we've had, and now we head to another, well, actually 2 of these big, wide open Formula 1 style circuits. The perfect kind of tracks, really, to showcase these cars across both classes.
Yeah, we've had a couple of weeks, haven't we, where we've sort of gone to Oulton Park and Croft and other places like that. They were quite narrow, a little bit more difficult to potentially overtake, but whereas when it comes to the end of the championship, we've opened everything up. We've gone slipstream crazy and everybody can go 3 wide at every single corner, and that should hopefully promote some exciting racing towards the top end of the championship. But if you remember last week, we were in Norfolk. We were over at Snetterton 300 circuit, where Elliot Dalton-Ayres became the driver with the most amount of points. If you remember, he took a 1st place and a 4th. The 1st place coming after the front 2, I think it was Carl Felbers and Joel Lask, having contact under the Brundle and Nelson complex, gifting Elliot Dalton-Ayres a nice Porsche-shaped hole, as he called it in his interview. He was able to get through and win. But to be fair to Elliot, he was extremely quick all night. Second was Nicky Taylor, who also had a half-decent evening. His 1st race was one not to be remembered in terms of the results. It was a 7th place, but it was an entertaining sort of journey watching him come through that 1st race. And then he ended up winning the 2nd race. His 1st race obviously had a contact at the beginning, which was a shame for him, but he did end up winning the 2nd race. And Josh Martin, who has been somewhat slowly climbing back up the order after a bit of a slow start to this championship, got a 2nd and a 5th, and he took home 3rd most amounts of points in the end. Again, Snetterton wasn't without its drama, but it was fairly drama-free in the GT4 category. If you can pretty much copy and paste this graphic from week to week, with Ben Smith coming out on top at Snetterton. His 2nd race was a little bit more difficult than anything else he's had before, but he managed to get there. Paul Laramie was 2nd place after what is 2 2nd places, so unsurprisingly there, as I said, the theme of the championship of GT4, it seems. And Chris Blakey ended up in 3rd place, but not to be missed as well, Andy, is that Ben Smith got driver of the round. It's put him in a pretty strong pace for the championship.
It has, indeed. The 2 race wins last time out. He's competed in 10 of the 12 races so far this season. He's won all 10 of them on the road, having 2 taken away due to track limit penalties. Within the Cup class, things have been slightly less straightforward. As you can see, Carl Felbers continues to lead the championship, but that was after his lowest score round of the season last time out, and he notched up his 1st finish outside the top 5 in race number 1. A 6th and a 2nd place, still better than most drivers would have hoped for, really, and I think most of the drivers will be satisfied with those results. Not Kyle, twice driver of the round winner so far this season. Saw his championship lead shrink ever so slightly, and it's now his HFT Racing teammate Nicky Taylor, who after a good score last week and a second victory of the season, moves up into second place in the championship. Elliot Dalton-Ayres was a winner in that first race, as Jack said, and he's now breathing down the neck of Nicky Taylor, just 3 points between them, and then a further 8 back to Jay Warren, who sits in 4th. Realistically, that might now become the battle worth focusing on as we move into the final 2 rounds. Eric Axelson needs a good night to try and inject himself into that fight for second place in the points. The same true of Josh Martin, Stanley Dorman, Joel Laskin, Andy Carroll, and Craig Curtis complete the top 10 in the GT3 category. Within the GT4s, though, as we've said, Ben Smith simply dominant. Those 2 penalties that he picked up at just before the halfway mark of the season at Croft, the only slight blot on his copy book. Now, his championship situation, though, is a little more precarious because he's used up his drop score, didn't enter the first round of the championship, remember, and so he can't really afford any bad results. If it were to all go wrong, either here or at Silverstone, and Paul Laramie was to pick up a couple of race wins, that gap would tighten quite significantly. But as it is, it's a 43-point cushion for Ben Smith. He knows that 2 solid results tonight should net him the title. Chris Blakey, though, is in not quite such a comfortable position as he tries to defend 3rd place in the championship. The perennial podium finisher, Chris Blakey, has got another regular inside the top 3, Sam Milner, only 9 points behind him. And then you go back a further 19 to John Jones, who sadly is absent tonight. Mark Stokes is 6th, Kenny Press in 7th, and Darren Butler completing the top 10 as Jack, we head, as I said, to the sunny climes of the South of France.
Yeah, Paul Ricard, it's a fantastic circuit, to be honest. I think it gets a bit more hate than it actually deserves on the F1 calendar, because if you drive it in anything other than an F1 car, it's very entertaining. As I said, it's plenty of wide open spaces for drivers to flourish and somewhat, stride through here in the French Outback, but it's quite nice, and I think it's a decent area to set up what will be a fantastic finale at Silverstone in a week's time. It also gets everybody a bit more used to the fact that we've got these sort of F1 massive style circuits. So yeah, if you want to have a quick look, you've forgotten what the circuit Paul Ricard looks like, well, Andy's about to walk you through GT3 and GT4 point of view.
So the circuit Paul Ricard then on a map looks deceptively simple, but as you're about to see from the driving seat, it is anything but. It throws actually quite a lot of corners at you pretty quickly at both the beginning and the end of the lap. So you've got to be on your toes, and any slight mistake can lead to you losing time for not just 1, but perhaps 2 or 3 corners. The first couple of turns, you've got to be precise. Very tempting to hammer those curves on the inside at turns 1 and 2. If you do, you'll find yourself understeering out wide and losing speed on this surprisingly long stretch towards turns 3, the right-hander, then the very tight left-hander at turn 4. You hug the curb on the inside there to rotate the car, stay on the left side of the road before turning into the sharp right-hander at turn 5, and then turn 6 that seems to go on and on and on and on and on forever. There's a bit of positive camber that helps rotate the car, and then again you try and stay on the right-hand side of the road, fire the car over the curb through turn 7, just like that, sector 1 is complete. Now you can relax for a little bit, right foot flat to the floor, up through the gears, down the Mistral straight, which on this version of the circuit is split into 2 by the Montreal chicane, turns 8 and 9. Every time we race here at the VRRC, this is the scene of some action, and I expect tonight to be absolutely no different. Having hopefully successfully negotiated the chicane, you focus on that exit speed because it's a long and quite steeply uphill run now towards probably the most iconic corner on the circuit. Turn number 10, Senior. It is not quite flat out in either of these cars, I wouldn't imagine. Again, you use the curve on the inside to rotate the car, and then you're into both, say, turn 11, a double apex right-hander, but there are 3 or 4 different ways that you can really approach this corner. Just don't approach it the way that Charles Leclerc did a couple of years ago, but he ended up in the barriers. Then into turn number 12, Bond Door. This is a really tricky off-cambered left-hander. Avoid the curve on this one, otherwise the car's going to find itself spinning out pretty easily. Flat out through turn number 13, and then into 14. Hard on the brakes, dive at the apex, try and get the nose to stay into the left-hand side of the road, because that's the line you want into the final turn. Halt turn 15, and again, such a sharp corner. Don't hit the curb too hard. Make sure you don't get too much wheel spin, particularly in the GT3 car. Hook the left-hand side of the road for the shortest run to the timing line. And that is a lap of the Circuit Paul Ricard. About 7 seconds difference between the 2 classes. So that is Paul Ricard. And Jack, I could not agree with you more. I think this circuit is absolutely an underrated gem, actually, to drive it in a GT car or a touring car. A lot of fun. And one of the reasons I really like driving this place is in the sim, am a driver who really leans on the front of a car quite a lot. I like to just get the car into the corner, get it turned in, hope that the nose sticks. And this really is the kind of track that rewards that kind of driving style. However, in these rear-engined Porsche Cup cars within the GT3 class, those are the kind of corners where you can sometimes pick up that bit of understeer and it can all become a little bit tricky. Oh, we may have lost Jack, possibly. Jack.
My
Oh,
apologies. Yes, I
there
had
we
it on
go.
mute because I was typing away in the background while you were talking us through that wonderful lap of Paul Ricard. Yes, I agree. It's almost like we have Coram from Snetterton constantly on repeat, going left and right, isn't it? Here, the sort of front end will keep trying to wash away from you in these cars, but it is really sort of on the drivers to really try and control that and to try and keep it in check. And as you said, it's all about knowing which curbs to hit. So we saw in that drive through there, and you spoke us through it, Andy, that there are some that you absolutely don't avoid. And then there are some that I would just straight up say, well, that's track limits. But if Rich is able to put it on the broadcast, he says that's the line, then I'm guessing that's the line they're going to accept. I can't wait for the stewards' inquiries on Monday. But it is going to be an interesting one. And as you said as well, this area of the circuit, as we're getting the slipstream, we don't have the hybrid or anything, which caused so much drama in the touring cars, the MX-5s and everything like that. But it's always action. There's always overtakes down the back straights, both of them, actually. I'm really excited by it.
Really enjoyed that angle, actually, as we watched Jay Warren turning into the chicane. You could really see graphically what we were just talking about. He turned into the corner and the car initially didn't rotate, and then it bit, and all of a sudden he's heading for the apex. These rear engine cars, no weight over that front axle, so you've got to make sure you get on the brakes and get that weight transferred forward in order to get the car turned in. But Jay Warren, a driver who has had a pretty strong debut season, you'd have to say, with us, perhaps started a bit more strongly than it's been going for the last couple of rounds. He picked up those 2 race wins in relatively quick succession, 2 wins in 3 races mid-season, but then hasn't visited the podium since. So Jay will certainly be keen to try and do so again. He looked quick in practice, Jack, and a couple of good results tonight, and he's right back on the tail of Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres.
He looked very good in practice. He was about half a second, if not 6 tenths quicker, just before we went into qualifying than everybody else. So I don't know if that counts for the whole week or whether that's just the last hour. But regardless, Jay Warren has been going very, very quickly, and he'll probably be building a little bit of fear into his competitors. Luckily for Carl Felvers, as you just mentioned, Jay Warren hasn't been quite on it over the past couple of weeks. So he's drifted away from the championship running, and Kyle was actually the second fastest in practice, whereas Nicky Taylor was in third. Kyle and Nicky very close together, and as I said, a little bit of drift, both of them, from Jay Warren. So even if Jay does drive off into the distance, which I don't think is going to happen because we know he's a little bit hit and miss on those cold tyres, even if he does drive into the distance, Kyle in sixth, third, second, 10th, I think he's just going to be focusing on finishing. He wants to go into Silverstone. He'd like it wrapped up. But as the championship leader, he just wants to be in a position where all he has to do is finish both races.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He is dropping, by my maths, about 36 points from last round, actually, at Snetterton, which did become his lowest score. So he'll have that in mind. It basically means that whatever happens, even if he didn't race at Silverstone, which I'm sure he will, he would still essentially score back those 36 points. So he'll be doing the maths, I'm sure, to try and work out how far ahead that means he has to be tonight. But I think 2 solid results, and he should have one hand on the championship trophy. Eric Axelson, meanwhile, going through the chicane at Montreal. Last time we raced here, or certainly last time Eric raced here, I think was in a touring car championship maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago now. And that chicane was actually the scene of one of his, at the time, very rare mistakes, wasn't it? Where he downshifted a bit too early, went off the road and did some damage to the gearbox. So he looked to have his hands full that time around going through that corner too, struggling perhaps to get the car turned in as he would like. Meanwhile, the HFT Racing teammates working together here, Jack. Now, this is the kind of track where you can see maybe the slipstream is worth a bit of time, but this doesn't look all that slick because Kyle Felvers, if he's been behind Nicky Taylor all lap, has very much caught Nicky now and appears to be getting held up a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's all very well and good to follow each other, but there you go. You need to get out of the way once the driver has caught up and allow the slipstream to then work the other way. Ultimately, it's slower if you're following each other through the corners because you're losing all that aero. But you know what? They swapped over. Well, they haven't swapped over. Nicky Taylor's just dived to the pits, haven't they? So any suggestion that we're working together, maybe it's just gone out the window. Felvers is currently third. Dalton Ayres is second, and Jay Warren is at the top of the timing. But whatever Nicky Taylor has been trying hasn't quite been working. He's in fifth, and he's currently in the pits. Ben Smith, shall we say, unsurprisingly, Andy, is at the top of the times in terms of the GT4 categories. And I'm just having a look at the gap. It's about 0.8 of a second to Paul Laramie. So Laramie really needs to find something to try and catch up to Ben Smith.
And Ben Smith, the only man in sight. He's found a bit of Paul Ricard that no one else is currently occupying, so no traffic issues for him at all. 9/10 nearly to the good over Paul Laramie, and again, 2 good results tonight for Ben.
Ooh.
Whoops, that nearly went wrong. Would be enough to seal the championship, but tell you what, we talk about the Cup cars being a handful. I think we're seeing today that actually these Caymans are not that easy to drive. And actually, we've seen that all season, haven't we? These cars, it's easy to forget about them sometimes when you've got the big, powerful 911 Cup cars, but actually the Caymans are equally challenging to drive, and it really makes Ben Smith's performance so far this season all the more impressive for it. Now, Carl Felbus, personal best in Sector 1 on this lap. He actually got personal best in Sector 1 and 2 on the previous lap, did improve his time, but lost time in Sector 3 when he caught Nicky Taylor, so he may come to regret that a little bit. He's all out of shape now as he heads through senior. Look at that.
Wow.
Beautiful rotation. Now, that was sideways, but with a purpose, if you like. It wasn't losing him time. I think he was just beautifully drifting into the apex. Not maybe the most orthodox way of rounding that corner in one of these cars, but it seemed to work.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're being very complimentary of him there. I sort of think maybe it was a slight mistake. That was a happy accident, shall we say. But either way, I think it looks pretty cool. Jay Warren has just gone quickest in Sector 2. His Sector 1 wasn't anything to write home about. In fact, it was about 2.5 minutes slower than everybody else. So I think it was some kind of outlap we're looking at here, which is pretty impressive to go purple at Sector 2 on an outlap. Kyle Felvers has gone slightly slower through Sector 2. He's about to cross the line. Wait and see what that pops up with. In fact, no, I don't know where he's gone. Maybe he's just dived into the pits because we were watching him finish a lap there, Andy, weren't we? But it hasn't seemed to have appeared on my timing screen.
Yeah, he's
Andy
pitted.
Dorman. That's why. Andy Dorman has gone up to 4th, though, with 3 green times.
Whoa.
Oh, it is nearly airborne.
What do we think, Jack? Was that track limits, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. At least vertically, I think, yeah.
Yes, quite. That was not the fastest way through the corner. No advantage gained by exceeding track limits, but yeah, this lap will be null and void, I think. So, yeah, Andy Dorman, 4th place. I feel like this has been a bit of a breakout season for Andy Dorman. I know he's only... Oh, never mind. Andy, we're saying nice things about you. Oh, and Jay Warren has his first flying lap of this run absolutely scuppered. He's only going to have time for one more now as well, so that was not ideal. But yes, that moment aside, Jack, I do feel like this has been a good season for Andy Dorman. He may be down in 7th place in the championship. He's only actually had 2 podium finishes, but he's been regularly finishing within the top 5 and running within the top 5 in pretty much every race. And there he is again, 4th fastest in qualifying. So for a driver who we traditionally have seen as a bit of a touring car specialist, it's nice to see Andy really finding some form in this championship.
Yeah, I think ultimately there's always a moment, isn't there, in each and every championship that we do, that Andy Dorman suddenly turns up and you think, well, where have you been for the last 3 or 4 rounds? And then he suddenly sort of disappears again without saying too much, shall we say. But it is nice to see that he's quite quick here at Paul Ricard. Maybe when we go to the minis, he'll prefer that because it's front-wheel drive, like the touring cars. But yeah, apparently he's very fast in minis. It says Rich over the comms. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more and talking to Andy Dorman a little bit more and spicing up the championship a little bit because I have to say, I know Kyle has been superb. The rest of the field, I wouldn't say, have quite been as competitive as we used to. I think there's been a lot more potentially incidents or something, Andy. I'm not entirely sure, but the standard hasn't quite been as quick as what we sort of tend to come to sort of think. And I think Kyle has been the standout this championship, and he's done it via consistency.
And of course, Kyle famously not very good in front-wheel drive either, as he likes to tell us. So that should open things up a bit into our next championship. But yeah, I think what's happened is that this championship has been very competitive. Kyle has very rarely been the fastest driver, actually, on track. He banked lots of points early on, whilst others were finding their feet. People like Jay Warren, for example. Nicky Taylor didn't have a great start to the championship either. It took him, well, he didn't get a top 5 finish in the first 2 rounds, as Andy Carroll has not helped his chances of getting a top 5 finish in this session either. He's parked at the side of the road. So yeah, early on, Carl Felver scored heavily. Ever since then, really, he's just been defending that lead. But the others, because there are so many of them who are capable of running at the front in this championship, they've all been rather falling over each other. And Eric Axelson's just fallen over something, heading up through the right-hander at turns 5 and 6, that is. So Axelson's off, Carroll's off at the side of the road. It's a rather messy conclusion to this qualifying session. But yeah, I just think because we have had a very competitive season, Jack, Kyle's just sort of got by through solid point scoring. We see this quite often, don't we? When there are 2 or 3 drivers who are quick, then very often one of those 2 or 3 can sort of, dominate all season, but actually it still ends up being quite close. But when you've got 6 or 7 potential podium finishers, it's the consistent driver who tends to come out on top in the championship.
It's true, and all the rounds we've been to, we're pretty much always saying in race 2, which, as we've discussed many times, is where a championship is won and lost. We'll always say after the first lap or something, we say, "Oh, that was a messy lap, but look who's in 3rd place all of a sudden. It's Kyle Felbus," and he just managed to make his way through. And ultimately, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of anticipation and experience in that. But that's not to say that the others on this field aren't skilled or experienced or have that intuition either. It just seems that Kyle seems to have had his head switched on, as Nicky Taylor doesn't even enter the track limits once, going through that a couple of 100 meters, deciding that he's going to make the shortest route possible, maybe back to the pits as well. Although he has gone green in Sector 1, Sector 2 is a little bit slow, but as the checkered flag has dropped for Jay Warren and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, what can Nicky Taylor do? Can he jump up ahead of them, comes across the line, and stays in 4th place? That probably means that Kyle Felvis will remain in 3rd, as Eric Axelson is parked on the outside of the circuit.
Yes, and I think possibly for the best there that Nicky didn't improve on that lap, because I think he might have got himself in a spot of bother if he had improved his time, but not his position, stayed where he was, just waiting for a few of the stragglers to improve. Chris Blakey has just gone purple in the middle sector. Now,
He did.
Purple on the timing screen, so someone's going to have to clear this up for me. Is that fastest within class, or is that fastest of anybody in the middle sector? Because if he's gone faster than anybody in the middle sector, that's we think he might have cut a corner. That makes a little bit more sense, and he is indeed heading for the pit lane. So there we go. Andy Carroll was improving, but he's seen the checkered flag. So I think that is everything for qualifying. It is Jay Warren who is going to get himself on pole position once again in the Cup class. Within the Cayman class, it is Ben Smith on pole by 0.9 of a second. And we'll hear from both of those drivers in just a couple of moments. Welcome back, everyone. Qualifying done here at Paul Ricard, and we've got two drivers to have a chat with, our two class pole sitters ahead of this penultimate night of racing in the championship. And within the cup class, it's a driver who really is keen to get a couple of good results under his belt tonight. Once a race winner so far twice a race winner. I doubted myself then. Twice a race winner this season, Jay Warren, hoping to make it a third from the pole position. He will be starting from the front of the cup class. He joins us now in the commentary box. Jay, congratulations on the pole position time there. And, well, what are your thoughts? Was that as quickly as you could have gone in that session there?
Well, I was quite surprised actually, because in the practice beforehand, I started to find a lot more time than I thought there was. And I started doing some times that were much faster than I have done before. But in the session, it wasn't as fast as I have gone, but it was definitely a good lap. I'm definitely very happy with to do that sort of lap in the actual session. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Championship-wise now, Kyle is a long way up the road, obviously not unbeatable, but he's certainly looking good for the championship. But second, third, fourth, fifth in the championship, you're all pretty tightly bunched, aren't you? So I'm sure you've got one eye on sort of closing in here on Nicky and Elliott ahead of you, because second place is still doable, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, of course, I'm looking at the people around me, and yeah, second is very close back to second. So hopefully I can take some points out of them in this race.
And does that change your mindset then with 4 races to go? Do you sort of prioritise beating Nicky and Elliott and Eric, or are you just kind of going out there, get the best results you can and let the points take care of themselves?
I think I'm just trying to go out and get the best results that I can. I think that there's no point looking around at where everyone else is, just sort of focus on my own job. And
well, hopefully that works out for you, Jay. Very best of luck. Hopefully you can make this a third race victory, and we'll speak to you in 25 minutes or so.
Thank you.
So Jay Warren then will be starting at the front of the Cup class, and it's now time for our weekly segment where Jack Oliphant tries to find some interesting questions to ask our runaway championship leader in the Cayman class.
Yeah, this is Ben Smith, of course, who is the leader of, well, the pole sitter, I should say, in the GT4 category. I'm going to leave the more interesting questions in a little bit, Ben, because ultimately we probably are going to be speaking to you again at some point tonight. But going into Paul Ricard, we were talking about maybe that the Cayman's a little bit difficult on this circuit. What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this track at the best of times, to be perfectly honest. And it just doesn't, I don't know, especially the track limits really get on my nerves. But I know it's not terrible. The car feels pretty good. Just the straights just drag on for far too long, to be honest.
I was going to say that the straights are dragging on too long because you're in the slower car. Have you ever thought about upgrading to the GT? Do you not think maybe, you know what, we're going to venture into the GT3s for a single week and see what happens?
If I'm clear enough to win, then I'll definitely join in the GTs next year, if it's possible, or next season, or next week even. What am I saying?
That'll be next week. I was going to say it's Silverstone, of course, for the finale.
Yep.
And finally, speaking of next year, obviously 2024, are we going to hopefully see you in the World Endurance League that we're going to be talking about in just a couple of minutes' time? Or are we going to be seeing you in the Mini Championship? Or what's your thoughts?
Well, you'll definitely be seeing me in the GT3s. I haven't signed up for the Minis yet. I'll need to give them a whirl, but that's definitely of interest to me as well. So you'll definitely see something of me, that's for sure.
Have you picked a car yet for the GT3s?
I quite like the Merc. I'd like to pick the Lambo, but I don't know. I just can't get along with it as well.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you do end up picking. You've got all of Christmas to be practicing, of course. Ben, congratulations. I'm creating some other more interesting questions for you later on, so you better get back into the interview room, because otherwise this 30 seconds it's taken me to create these is just going to be wasted.
Yeah, you're putting the pressure on me now. Commentator's curse and all that stuff.
I'm sure you don't feel it, Ben. Congrats on the pole position.
Cheers.
Good stuff, Ben Smith. Ben Smith starting from the pole position in the Cayman class. Right, it was teased just then in that previous interview, but some very exciting things coming your way in the new year. Beginning on January the 17th will be our World Endurance League, the WEL, which is going to be perhaps one of the real highlights of 2024 for me, actually. A GT3 Endurance Championship, 1 race per night, and 2 races inserted between each of our regular sprint racing championships. So we will have the first 2 rounds in the middle and end of January. They will be at Qatar and Imola. Then we'll run our first sprint championship, which I believe will be the mini challenge. Then we go into another 2 races on consecutive, or 2 weeks apart, Spa and Le Mans. Then we have Sao Paulo and the Circuit of the Americas after a couple of months break, and then we conclude the championship in September and October with a race at Fuji and Bahrain. 90-minute races with a full broadcast as always. VRRC members get free entry, non-members pay £10 a round. That's great value for money, quite frankly. And if you can't do one of those 8 weeks, then don't worry, there is a dropped round as always. Jack, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, no, it does look good, doesn't it? And obviously trophies are to be included. We're just hoping that everybody obviously keeps coming back, and I like the fact that there's only 2 rounds in between the major championships, because it reminds people when they finish the major championship, oh yeah, we're doing that again. Oh, you know, you don't get bored of it, sort of thing. You just go straight back in. It's really entertaining, and it keeps people, everybody around the VRRC. But there are major championships to be held, and I did tease them in that previous interview as well. Of course, it's the mini JCW Cup. A fantastic looking calendar, a great car as well, very similar to the touring cars, very similar to the Civics that we've done many a time, but equally just that little bit different, just different enough to make people have to practice, and the fact that there might be some stronger drivers out there than we've seen in potentially the Porsches and stuff like that. Again, Andy Dorman is a hot favourite apparently. So yeah, 25-minute races just like we've had here in this championship, fully live broadcast, and it's the entry fee of £40 for the VRRC members and £80 for the non-members, and there's all these prizes up to grabs as a result of it as well. The CAMMUS simulation wheel, the dashboard for your sim in 2nd place in conjunction with Phoenix Sim Racing, of course, thank you very much for them, and the Mecha, I don't know if that's a gear shifter or a handbrake, they're both exactly the same. It's the shifter apparently, makes sense considering we're not a rallying channel. And the 4th and 5th place, of course, is some VRRC apparel as well. So, yeah, some great prizes out there. And, of course, drive of the round, as per usual. Andy, it's going to be an awesome championship, isn't it? I mean, you've seen plenty of times the mini JCWs in real life, and especially around Oulton Park and places like that. They're always so entertaining.
I'm a little distracted thinking how we can somehow work out a VRRC rally championship. You've got me thinking now, Jack. I'll come back next week with some ideas. Yeah, mini challenge, mini cup, absolutely can't wait for that. Tin top racing, front wheel drive, 1 make, guaranteed close quarters racing. And the final new thing that we need to tell you about is another new initiative for next year. It is the Mirror League, a Formula 1 Mirror League, which will run sort of alongside the real world Formula 1 Championship for 12 of the 73 weeks on which there is going to be a Formula 1 Grand Prix next year. There will be a race within the VRRC, a 25-minute pair of races in Formula 3 cars, and it will follow along certain tracks as and when they appear on the Formula 1 calendar. It's only now occurring to me that they appear to have moved Suzuka an awful lot earlier in the calendar. But anyway, yes, 12 rounds across some of the very best racetracks in the world, and once again, free entry to VRRC members and non-members £10 per round, and some single-seater action, which is not something that we get to see a huge amount of really here at the VRRC, so very much looking forward to that. Not broadcast at the moment, but depends, I suppose, on how much interest we get, so get yourself signed up and you might be hearing more of us in the new year. Whether that's a selling point, Jack, I'm not so sure.
Yes, I hope it will be. The people aren't bored of us. We've only been doing this together for 2 years, every single week. But yeah, it does look cool. As you say, we haven't actually seen that much of the single-seater stuff since, really, as far as I can remember, the Academy days, back, I think before you were actually commentating, Andy, and it was commentating with us, I should say, far after you've been commentating. But yeah, I think that was the last time we saw potentially the Formula 4s back then. But the thing is, like, whenever we do the Formula Championships or anything like that, single seaters, quite a lot of people like to ask for them. But they are a bit of a crash fest, because ultimately, obviously, everybody has to be very careful. Whereas at least in a tin top car, you sort of bounce off each other a little bit, and open wheel is a little bit more difficult, isn't it? But that should be a really fun championship. The car is a great one to drive. If people can keep themselves focused, then it will be absolutely awesome. But we do have 2 races to be figuring out here this evening, haven't we, Andy? And well, the first one is coming up in a couple of minutes' time with Jay Warren on pole position, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 2nd place, which is something I wouldn't have guessed after practice. I would have guessed Jay Warren on pole. With Elliot in 2nd, that sort of opens the championship a little bit for him, isn't it? Because he's in 4th place, and you said, 3rd place, and you said the sort of race we're looking at is 2nd to 3rd, that Taylor Dalton-Ayres battle.
Yeah, absolutely, with Jay Warren part of that as well. So it's interesting, isn't it? We've got all three of them starting within the top 4 places. The driver who's part of that battle but not managed to qualify towards the front is Eric Axelsen. Axelsen 8 points behind Jay Warren, sits 5th in the championship, only 6th on the grid. So a bit of work to be done for him, but this is a track where we anticipate you'll be able to overtake, and that long Mistral straight in particular will some extreme opportunities, and we should get some good side-by-side racing. It's quite a long run as well from the start line into turn 1, so if you get a good start, there is ample opportunity to make a move down into that first corner as well. But yeah, Jay Warren needing a couple of good results here from a championship perspective as far as winning the championship's concerned. That's going to be a bit tricky with Felder starting 3rd. Kyle would need an absolute disaster, and even then, his drop scores would rescue him slightly. But yeah, for 2nd place in the championship, Jay Warren will definitely want to beat Elliot Donsnares and Taylor, who stars relatively close behind. Cayman class, Ben Smith and Paul Laramie lock out the front row, 10th and 11th overall grid, so watch out for the first one particularly to see how those two get on. Lies right now to the field and to the red light. They're illuminated as soon as they go out. We're away and racing for the first time tonight here at Paul Ricard. That happens now, and Jay Warren links up the rear tyres, gets a pretty solid start, you'd have to say, there from pole position. Will Elliot Oulton slot into 2nd place? I think he will. Nicky Taylor, though, is up alongside Carl Felvers, who's not seemingly had a great launch there. Has Taylor gone around the outside? No, Felvers hangs on the inside line. So it's grid order for the top half dozen or so as they round the first couple of corners. Down towards turn number 3 they head, and Elliot Oulton looking around behind the race leader, trying to defend from a very racy looking Kyle Felvers. Into turns 3 and 4 they go, and a very orderly start, Jack.
Yeah, I think Jay Warren's best friend might be Kyle Felder here, because Kyle will be very, very keen to go forward. It seems his body language in the car very, very aggressive. So yeah, Jay has had a fantastic start. I think there was some camera optical illusions coming out. Discord freezes. Hopefully we'll be back in a couple of seconds time. There we go. Jay Warren's still in the lead. Elliot Dalton still in 2nd place. Carl Felder's just about in 3rd. Nicky Taylor in 4th.
Yes, he is. Oh, Felvers hammers the curb there at the Montreal chicane. That did not go well. That can damage the car, actually, if you keep doing that. So Carl's got to be careful. It certainly hurt his exit speed. And Nicky Taylor, teammates or not, needs to try and make some progress here, because the 2 drivers he is fighting with for the 2nd place in the championship are getting away in front. Taylor goes 3rd then, after a rare mistake there from Carl Felvers. I said that chicane would catch people out, and already that's proving to be the case. Now, look, here in the Cayman class, Ben Smith leads Paul Laramie 2nd. Nothing new there, but Laramie is very much going with him and actually tries to get to the inside line there as they head through the right-hander at turn 11. He's got the inside line, and Paul Laramie, Jack, goes to the lead.
Yeah, I love that. He crowbarred open, didn't he? I think Ben Smith wasn't really expecting it. Maybe he's a little bit kinder to Paul Laramie than he would be if the championship was slightly closer, but he tries to get the cut back now. Well, Chris Blakey decides he doesn't want to race anymore and shoots off the circuit. They're still going almost side by side. In fact, no, not quite nose to tail around the outside. Ben Smith is trying here, isn't he? He's giving it all he can to go into the last corner on the inside. That's going to be a hell of a move, Andy, and he gets it just about done and dusted.
Oh, I don't think he doesn't. The momentum is with Laramie on the outside. You see that quite a lot at that corner. If you can hang on around the outside and you're left racing room, then you should come out in front. That's what happened. Paul Laramie up for the fight tonight, and we're absolutely here for it. Laramie then to the front, Smith 2nd. Sam Milner now inherits 3rd after Chris Blakey's moment, but well, Ben Smith said that he didn't really like this track and said that he wasn't feeling 100% confident. He got the lap in qualifying for pole, but in the races having a much tougher time of it. Back to the Cup class meanwhile, Jay Warren starting to get away, so none of that cold tyre trouble this week. I don't know whether the ambient temperatures are higher in the service tonight than we're used to. We are in South France now, not the northwest of England or something like that. But he has looked really quick on cold tyres. Remember, set that purple sector, didn't he, on his outlap in qualifying? So quite clearly, Jay has got over his issues with cold tyres, and he is already starting to break away.
He's a bit of a dangerous man for the championship, if that is the case. I'm not talking about this championship particularly. I think that might have gone. But in terms of the minis, that would be quite frightening for the rest of the field. As Ben Smith, again, looking up that inside. He said that the straights go on for far too long. Paul Laramie trying to make them slightly shorter by jumping all over the curb on the inside on the left there. But they both get out a pretty similar exit. Laramie leading the way for probably the longest he's led in the GT4 category this season. On the road, anyway, and with Ben Smith in the race as well. Because, of course, let's remember, in the first round of the championship, Ben Smith wasn't here. And I think Paul Laramie ended up taking 2 victories. He did indeed. So Paul Laramie is he's not unused to. Is that... That's a terrible way of wording it. He's pretty used to winning a championship. Is also a bad way of it. Yeah, it's better. It's still not true, is it? Because he's only won 2 out of the 8.
Yes, the first round of the championship, I have to say, I thought we were in for a very one-sided season because I thought Laramie was going to win everything in the Cayman class. Then Ben Smith came along and all of a sudden that changed, and now Ben Smith is back to the lead of the class again, and Laramie slips down to 2nd place. So Ben Smith back to the front, and this is going to be the real test really for Laramie. He managed to pounce early and get the lead. Can he now stay with Ben Smith and have another go? These long straights will be helping him. The slipstream effect will, I would imagine, be a little bit more powerful in the Cayman than they are in the Cup cars, and as you can see riding the ball with him, that sort of keeps him sort of within striking range, although Smith had a good exit from that last corner. On board with Laramie into turn 1, turns in a bit earlier, look, that looks good on the way in, but then look, it puts him slightly too tight into the right-hander at turn 2, and so Smith comes off that corner a little bit faster. That was a really interesting look there, Jack, as a professional racing driver. I'm sure you love these on-board shots. A fascinating look at the difference in driving styles.
I do, I laugh, but I actually do quite enjoy it from a nerdy perspective, yeah. It is quite good fun, and look, Laramie is nearly every single corner. Smith has had a slightly different line to Laramie, and you're right, the difference is that Smith is much more willing to go a lot wider, maybe slow the car down a little bit more, but focusing on the exit of nearly every single corner. And look at the difference it's made already. It's a huge gap that's growing between them as Josh Martin tries to force his way up the inside of Ethan Hill halfway through the corner. And it's a slightly different place to where we're used to seeing overtakes happen through that chicane. But it is quite entertaining. But Ethan Hill and Josh Martin have dropped well off the back of Eric Axelsson as they continue to natter about who should go into 7th place as Ethan Hill sends it around the outside. I don't think the momentum is going to be in his favour, but he's still going to try it. He's gone really wide. There are multiple lines, as Andy said in the track walkthrough. Ethan Hill will have a better exit, but there's not enough room to just get up the inside of Josh Martin.
I don't usually condone the use of the word send to describe a motor racing manoeuvre, but that was a send from Ethan Hill. Full commitment round the outside, banged into the door of Josh Martin's car, but ultimately Martin able to make the move stick. So Josh breaks into 7th place, but yeah, 5 seconds adrift now of the next group of cars, which really is this group of cars. Elliot Oulton struggling a little bit for pace. He's 2 seconds off now the back of race leader Jay Warren, and he's got Carl Felvers, the championship leader, all over him as they head down towards turn number 1 again. So that is 3 laps completed. There goes Warren. 2nd place with Oulton, 3rd Carl Felvers, who pitches the car into turn number 1 with Nicky Taylor not that far behind, but Felvers clearly on the attack here, not content to settle for 3rd.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it, really? It's a proper racing driver's attitude that he's got towards this race. Doesn't really want to settle for anything. He wants to go out there and grab the championship by the horns, shall we say, and really give it his best shot. And he is going very, very quickly. I don't think Elliot Oulton really has the pace on Kyle Felvers. I don't know how his qualifying came about, but it is certainly struggling a little bit here. But he hasn't put anything wrong yet, as he hasn't put the tyres wide or anything. Axelson's got Bjorn Dorman, by the way, just in the background of this little 3-way battle. You can see that there in the background. As there we go, Elliot Oulton is starting to sweat. He goes all the way to the white line, Andy, before moving slightly further back across as Carl Felvers got a decent run on him on the timing screen. His nose is ahead as they go round the outside through the chicane. Can Carl Felvers get it stopped in time to turn right? And he has. Great move.
And Jay Warren did not get it stopped. He went straight onto the chicane. He's had to slow down to avoid getting a penalty. And look, that lead gap is now coming down. He should have been the best part of 3 seconds clear of this group. And the gap at the end of the Mistral Straight is only 1 second. What a move, though, by Kyle Felvers. The championship leader just needs 2 solid results tonight. And he's as good as the champion. And he just pulled off one of the moves of the season. Yes, he had a slipstream, but to go right round the outside of the man who is one of the men who is hoping to try and challenge him still for the championship, that took some bravery, and Carl Felvers now looks like he might have half a chance at the race victory. There is Carl looking thrilled to bits with the move that he just pulled off. That was some spectacular driving though, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just not quite sure. It'd be good to see if anybody in the YouTube chat can tell us if Carl has ever actually smiled in his 15 years or 14 years or however old he is of life. Because ultimately he pulls off a move. He pulls off a move like that, and I can get why he hasn't smiled, because he's fully focused. He's right into the thick of it, and he doesn't want to give the position straight away. He needs to actually gain a gap. He sees Jay Warren. Maybe he thinks that there's a possibility of a race win in here if Jay has those little mistakes in him as well. But yeah, after the race, if he doesn't smile about that move, I don't know what we're going to get out of him.
Well, that's our target then. If and when we do a podium interview, we'll try and get a reaction out of him, because that was a truly superb bit of racing. It is a move that's on there to go around the outside, a bit like Brundle and Nelson at Snetterton, around the outside at the left, get the inside with the right, but it is a lot harder than it looks. And I'll tell you what, that was pretty much perfect there from Carl Phelps. He's already now broken 1 second clear of Dalton Ayres, who really does seem to be struggling. So Dalton Ayres qualified well, but does seem to be lacking a little bit of race pace, and that's music to the ears, perhaps, of Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson. Axelson well and truly now a part of the podium fight.
Yeah, he is. And I was just having a look. Where is Eric Axelson in terms of championship? He's 5th in the championship, but he is a fair way back. He's probably about 20, well, he is 20 points behind Elliot Dalton Ayres. Jay Warren is slotted in between them, of course. Jay for my Discord to come back before I get to see. There we go. It is back now. So yeah, I was just about to say, Eric Axelson, Andy, he's probably a little bit too far back in this race and in the championship to make any kind of impact going forward, because everybody he needs to beat is currently ahead of him.
Yeah, well, yeah, but if you can 16 points clear of Eric Axelson, so you never know. Eric could still pick up another place or two anyway in the championship standings towards the end of another lap we head. Then this will be the 5th lap of the race, 14.5 minutes still to go, and well, Jay Warren 7/10 of a second back to Elliot Dalton Ayres in 3rd. That is the battle that we're watching, really. Dalton Ayres and Nicky Taylor, with Eric Axelson in behind. Across the start-finish line they go, and Elliot Dalton Ayres feeling the heat here. Carl Felvers, what was his lap time at that time around? Felvers did a 2:06.4, pretty much matching, actually, Jay Warren. So Felvers matching the race leader. He needs to do more than that if he hopes to snatch a race victory.
Yeah, but like we mentioned before, race victory is on what he's after. He's after the championship, of course. So he's quite happy, I'm sure, where he is. Even as I said, he doesn't really look it right now, but hopefully he will a little bit later. Nicky Taylor, Eric Axelson, and have both dropped, and Elliot Dalton dropped Andy Dorman after what was quite a strong-looking qualifying. Andy Dorman doesn't seem to quite have the race pace, unfortunately. Josh Martin also, another talking point. He came back on the in the YouTube chat saying that it was a top qualifying performance from himself. I'm guessing he was being sarcastic in his usual Josh Martin self, because I think he qualified dead last in the GT3s. He's jumped himself at least up to 7th.
Yes, but Ethan Hill, with whom he was battling, has dropped back down to 9th. So Ethan, as often has been the case this season, gets involved in a battle, gets himself a bit of screen time, and then seems to disappear again. He's dropped back behind Craig Curtis now. You can just see him going through the chicane in the background, so not sure what happened there. On this lap, by the way, Carl Fell was taking a 10th or 2 out of Jay Warren. So Jay hasn't got this race wrapped up just yet. Still just under 13 minutes to go. And if Carl Felvers perhaps has a bit better long-run pace, then he could still challenge come the end of the race. Remember, Jay Warren, 25 kilos of success ballast on his car, 20 fewer than Carl Felvers. But this isn't the worst place to be carrying ballast at. Yes, it's a bit stop-start in places, Jack, but it is at least a relatively flat circuit, so you're not lugging all of that extra weight up and down hills. And you know, perhaps Carl Felvers might not feel too much in the way of extra tyre wear either come the end of the race. It's interesting to see whether that gap keeps coming down. Although that being said, the final sector, which is very technical and a bit stop-start, that really is where Warren manages to gap Kyle once again.
I'm very interested to see how it affects them at Silverstone, because really, if you're designing a track that isn't going to be affected by ballast, Silverstone's probably what you're going to come out with, isn't it, really? It's there's only about 2 or 3 really heavy braking zones and therefore really heavy accelerating zones, and it's all completely flat. So it's when they go into the final round of the championship, I wouldn't say everybody's on level pegging, but it will be a lot closer than the likes of Oulton Park and Brands Hatch. It should be really fun to watch. But you're right, here I think Kyle seems to have really good raw pace, regardless of whether he's got weight on board, whether he hasn't or whether people are light or anything like that. Everybody seems to have really sort of good representative pace. So I think the balance is doing a good job here at Paul Ricard, and Nicky Taylor, Elliot Daltonez just started to drop away from Kyle Felvers as a consequence of maybe Kyle having that sniff. He's just gone purple through Sector 1. Jay Warren about half a second slower through Sector 1, actually, than Kyle. Elliot Daltonez, Nicky Taylor, Eric Axelson, and Andy Dorman all going green. So maybe Jay has cooked his tyres.
Yeah, Nicky Taylor with a big move through the Montreal chicane. Does that give Axelson a run now, heading up towards CD? Yes, it does. We're on board with the Swede. He looks to the inside line. Now, this is not a guaranteed pass on the inside. You can carry good momentum around the outside. That's what Taylor tries to do. For now, Nicky manages to hang on, but a definite mistake there from Nicky. Just got it a bit wrong over the curves. We've seen that really be the most common place to make a mistake in this race, really. Hammering the curves a bit too hard through the chicane. And that just meant that gap came down. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That lead gap down by quite a bit. But look, in the final sector, Warren just starts to get a bit of time back out of Kyle. So I'm interested to know why it is the final sector that Kyle's struggling in. Is it the weight, or is it just his driving style? Because Sector 1 is a bit stop-start, and yet in that first part of the lap, he seems to catch the race lead. We'll see what the gap's like as they come out of the final corner. It's down to 7/10 at one point. It's going to be about 9 or so as they cross the line. But not by a huge margin. Across the line they go. It is a personal best lap there from Kyle Felvers. He's within a second, and that means he's perhaps, Jack, just starting to pick up a whiff of a slipstream down the back straight. He'll certainly be getting extra incentivised now, and he'll be feeling that this race win could be on.
I'm thinking, you know, you're saying about the... So I'm thinking what, you know, he's glad he's in the slipstream for Sector 1 and Sector 2 because of those long straights and everything like that. Just whether or not the wash is starting to affect him through Sector 3. Maybe the car won't turn quite as happily, whereas Jay Warren doesn't have that problem going through there. Maybe that's something, a part of it. Or maybe it's just, like you said, there are plenty of different lines that are going through that Sector 3 that Jay's are a little bit tighter and just a little bit better on the exit, or, you know, here, there and everywhere, and Kyle doesn't quite have the same ones, and the ones he's trying maybe are stronger in some areas but not in others. It's interesting to see. We'll sort of ask Kyle maybe and Jay if they have that sort of difference in mind, or whether they sort of just know that that's getting, whatever their rhythm is, they're happy to stay there, or whether or not Kyle is actually going to try and maybe change the lines he's going to do through Sector 3 between races to try and catch up and minimise that gap. Something that's very difficult to do, because if you spend all that time practicing and qualifying and in a race, you don't really want to change your lines all of a sudden. But the best drivers can do it, and it'll be interesting to see if Kyle will be up to that challenge. But at the moment, I don't think he really needs to, but I just always like to see him get pushed because he is a good driver.
Yes, very good driver indeed. This is at least the kind of track where you can maybe onto your line, as you said, to try and avoid that dirty air that is the pain of racing driver's life. 8 minutes and 20 to go though, and he continues just to chip away at that lead. Jay Warren can't afford a mistake now, that's for sure. If he puts a wheel wrong, Felvers is going to be with him. Out to the final turn they go then. What are the lap times going to say this time around then at the conclusion of the 8th lap of the race? It's pretty equal, I would say, between the two of them. Across the timing line they go, and yeah, 10th and a bit quicker for Kyle Felvers. So not a huge difference there. He's definitely gapping Daltonez, but Elliot also looks a bit more comfortable now in third, doesn't he? He's not a long way ahead of Nicky Taylor, but Taylor not exactly snapping at his heels now in the way that he was earlier on in the race.
No, he's not. Sorry, I was just looking at... I'll be honest, Andy, I'm always listening to you, as you know, but on that one, I didn't quite hear everything you were saying because I was looking on the timing screens and everything like that. What were you saying?
At least you weren't watching the football. I was saying...
No, I'm not. I promise I'm not.
Nicky Taylor, not exactly snapping at the heels of Elliot Daltonez as he was a few laps ago, although as I say that, actually, that gap creeping down again.
And pull that in slightly. I know they're moving around. Elliot Daltonez moving around to try and break that slipstream. Eric Axelson and Nicky Taylor both trying to follow him to do that. It's whether or not, I think ultimately, whether that becomes a battle or not is whether Daltonez starts looking in his rearview mirrors. We say it, we see it all the time, Andy. The fact that that's the driver's worst enemy is the rearview mirrors, isn't it? Because as soon as you start looking at them, you start overdriving, you start missing apexes, you start thinking about what they're doing rather than what you're doing. And if what you're doing has been working for the majority of this race, that's what you should focus on. And Jay Warren and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, I mean, that. It's easy to start overthinking it.
Yes, it is, and overthinking something that Jay Warren may be doing now because he's got Felvis well and truly in his wheel tracks. I think maybe that bit of a slipstream that Felvis is picking up is just starting to take effect, and so Jay Warren might have some defending to do here. Was trying to weave around, break the toe down the back straight. Look at the wider turning point, wider entry line there for Felvis into the last corner, and that yields a bit of extra exit speed. The gap just creeping down, then he picks up the toe, and all of a sudden that gap is only half a second as they cross the line. It's even less now though, between Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor pulling alongside now to the outside line, this for third position into turn number 1. Dalton-Ayres has the inside. Surely Nicky can't go right round the outside. No, he can't. And up towards 3 and 4, Nicky Taylor on the attack, pulls to the outside line. They're side by side again, and as Dalton-Ayres defends, Nicky Taylor still can't find a way through, and Eric Axelsen suddenly joins in the fun as well.
Yeah, Eric's eyes must be lighting up at the prospect of he can walk away with a third place here if he just plays it cool, because it's 5 minutes to go. This battle doesn't need to reach its climax immediately. Nicky Taylor will know that if he overtakes Dalton-Ayres, all that's really probably going to happen is the fact that Dalton-Ayres will have to slipstream from him, and it'll be one of those battles that keeps on raging until the final whistle. And here goes Eric Axelsen looking at the inside of Nicky Taylor, and is this close enough? He looks close enough. Nicky Taylor, I think, misses the braking zone a tiny bit. Axelsen looks at the inside, but Nicky Taylor does get it all collected. Dalton-Ayres lives and breathes another day, but look at the exit that Axelsen has.
Yeah, still side by side. They run that, and Eric, I think, might have just got the drag round the outside. Can he clear Nicky Taylor? Yes, he can. Nicky Taylor has to slot back in behind, and Axelsen manages to find a way through. So that was a brilliant bit of opportunistic racecraft there from Eric Axelsen. It has dropped them away from Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but Eric will be feeling confident, I think, that he might have the pace to close back in again, and Taylor will be frustrated. That chicane really has been his undoing all race. He made a mistake there earlier on, cost him a place, and that time around was overtaken fair and square by Eric Axelsen. So Axelsen through, and immediately now starts to chop into that advantage held by Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And if he can get past Elliot Dalton-Ayres, then he'll be outscoring 2 of the 3 drivers directly ahead of him in the championship. Nicky Taylor, I think, was just taking a much different line through the penultimate corner there, seemed to suddenly arrive at a huge rate of knots, but as they come out of the corner, it's actually Axelsen now who makes a bit of a mistake, runs a bit wide over the curb, breaks rear traction, and Nicky Taylor has not given up on getting 4th place back.
No, he's going to be slightly frustrated. Maybe, I don't know whether he's going to be driving frustrated now as well, but he's going to have a very, very late break into turn 1, goes all over the curves. That's correct at halfway through. That's going to ruin his mid-corner run and exit there. Bit of a shame from him, getting a little bit too close and a little bit too quick into the apex for Nicky Taylor. Whether or not he'll do the same here again, he's very, very keen on the pace. Is Nicky, and he's clambering all over the curves to try and get the car rotated, and obviously to minimize the amount of space he has to take up. As he goes through the right hander, you can see the acceleration tracing on the left is nowhere near flat. As they flick it left as well, is launched and latched onto the back of Eric Axelsen. Is there going to be another move here, Andy? I think there might be just a touch too far away.
Yeah, but for the race leader move perhaps shaping up now. Carl Felvis closing in as close really as he has been, but maybe got a bit too close there. That extra slipstream meant that he carried good speed down the straight, but then maybe a bit more circumspect under braking. He's had a good exit from the chicane though, tucks back into the slipstream. Round a GT4 car goes that next group behind them, but right now we're on board with Carl Felvis sat in 2nd place. We're going to be starting the final lap of the race at the end of this one, and he's never been closer to Jay Warren. And you find a way through. Jay, of course, desperately wants this win to try and outscore Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, which he's doing. Taylor in particular, he's outscoring. If you remember, 2nd in the championship was 11 points clear of Jay Warren. Well, Warren on course at the moment for 25 points for winning the race. Nicky Taylor down in 5th place would only be scoring 16, so it's an important result this for Jay Warren. How much of a risk is Carl Felvis willing to take to try and net another race victory? He's only won, remember, twice so far this season, Carl Felvis. That's the same number of race wins as Jay Warren. It's been Kyle's consistency that sees him have this nice championship lead, but he sure would love to be on top of that podium again, I'm sure.
how many times have we seen this over the last few weeks? So Kyle being in the race lead and hanging on from a quicker driver behind going into the last couple of laps. Ultimately, that was obviously Joel Lask versus Carl Felvers a couple of times that happened in the likes of Oulton Park and Snetterton. But you sort of get it's a similar situation here, isn't it? With Jay Warren having been in the race lead for the entirety pretty much, but maybe not quite having the race pace right at the end, whereas the driver in second place getting really, really aggressive with it and trying to find every inch of track, every bit of grip that the tyres will offer him to try and get past. And I think they're going to be quite close, maybe even close enough to make a move. I don't think into the chicane, but I reckon down towards the bottom and going into sector 3, Andy, is where we might see it, because there's going to be a GT4 car in the way here.
Yeah, this could get interesting. Can they clear that car before the braking zone? Jay Warren's looking to the inside line. Is he alongside it though? I'm not so sure. He might be more defending lead, and Kyle Felvers all over the back of him, but they come out the other side exactly as they were. That marker perhaps actually scuppering Felvers' best opportunity to have a go, because now the overtaking opportunities are limited. Up towards senior they go. For the last time of asking, the overhead shot shows the different approaches to that corner. It looked like Jay Warren maybe gained a length or so, as again in this final sector it is difficult to follow another car closely, but Kyle cleverly positions the car a bit wider, finds some clean air for the nose of the car and comes off the turn a little bit more quickly, but he's just not quite close enough. Again, takes a wider line into the left-hander there at turn number 12, but he's all over the curb on corner exit. That might just have allowed Jay Warren off the hook. I think they head towards the final couple of turns, and Jay Warren now just needs to make sure this is then off the final turn. They're about to head. It's a bit of a drag race to the line, but Jay Warren is going to get there first. It is a third victory of the season for Jay Warren. Carl Felvers extends his championship lead over those that matter, and Elliot Altonairs just about manages to hang on. Disappointed fifth position, I think, really, for Nicky Taylor. He won't be very happy with that at all. In the Cayman class, meanwhile, Jack, after all that early excitement, Ben Smith seemingly has made this race his own once again.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the gap is between Ben Smith and Paul Laramie, but you can just about see Paul Laramie in the background coming out of the chicane as Ben Smith goes into the final couple of complex of corners, or into sector 3. So it's been a long old race for Paul Laramie. I think obviously getting into the race lead, he probably got a little bit excited and then just saw Ben Smith somewhat pull away after that, and a bit of a mathematically round up the championship. And when he goes into Silverstone, will we see him in the GT3s? Because that might give us the first indication of how close he will be in a championship fight for the World Endurance League and the Minis as well. Because I am interested to see how he would be on a level par with the rest of them.
Yeah, that will be interesting, won't it? Ben Smith, I think it would be nice to have him on the grid for the Mini Championship. Certainly should be a force to be reckoned with in the GTs. He flashes the lights, he celebrates another victory within the Cayman class, and that now perhaps does pretty much seal the championship in his favour. Meanwhile, Paul Laramie comes home second. It's nearly a 10-second deficit this time around, but Laramie does manage to get himself back on the podium. And then here, Chris Blakey heading for another podium, and an important one really, Jack, because third place in the championship, he's battling with Sam Milner, remember? Well, Milner, after his earlier dramas, are not able to challenge Blakey. 3 seconds the gap between the two of them, so Chris Blakey accelerates off the final corner and will complete the podium finishes for race number 1. Welcome back, everybody. Race 1 in the books here from Paul Ricard, and in both classes it was a solid result for our championship leaders, but it was a third victory of the season, not for when you pulled out that nice lead. I think it was the best part of 3 seconds at one stage in the early stages of the race. I really did think that you were going to have a slightly easier time of it, but it looked like there was a bit of a mistake at the chicane, and from that point on, Kyle was really starting to apply the pressure.
Yeah, I turned into the chicane, and for whatever reason, the curb like bounced me across the track. So it was difficult to. I was just very surprised by that, and then after that, the gap was a lot smaller, and then Carl got into second, and he was extremely fast, and he was catching me the whole race, and I was just happy to see the checkered flag.
An interesting moment on the final lap as well, because you were going down the back straight towards the chicane for the last time. It looked like Carl was about to get alongside you, and then a back marker appeared in front. Did that back marker help you in a way, or did it make life more complicated?
I mean, it's always tricky when in these situations when you get a back marker, because you just got to be a bit more careful. But I'm not too sure, to be honest, whether it helped or hindered me. I'm not too sure.
Well, it certainly didn't cost you the lead, that's for sure. You managed to get yourself another race win. Good news from a championship perspective, that, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I'm very happy. I've had a tougher couple of race weeks, and yeah, I'm very happy to get another win.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, Jay. Well done on the race victory. Best of luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Well, it might not have been another race victory for our championship leader, Jack, but I suspect he'll be pretty happy with second place, especially after that move he made at the chicane.
Yes, and he's already smiling. Look at that. It's a fantastic move there at the chicane, Kyle. It was, one that we were certainly gasping at, and to get into that second place, and then you just chipped away at it. But talk us through the move from your perspective first.
Yeah, definitely. I think I said to Nicky before the race, going into that chicane, I wanted to be on the inside to make the move and then hopefully get the switch on the exit. But Elliot defended the inside, and I hadn't actually tried the outside yet on Nicky, so you know it was the first time, and we sort of just broke as late as we could and hung it around the outside. Elliot broke slightly early and just left the gap.
How comfortable was it in the air? How much sort of leeway did you have off the track? Because from our camera angle, it's difficult. Move in the end for you, or was it a little bit dicey?
I lost you there, Jack, but what I heard was how much room did I have on the track. And,
basically,
yeah. yeah. I did have quite a fair bit of track. I mean, Elliot was far to the inside already, so we had most of the track to play with. I sort of just tried to take my normal line, and by the time I could...
I think we just lost you there, Kyle, so hopefully the ladies and gentlemen at home heard you, but unfortunately I missed you a little bit. But going further on from that question, in terms of the championship, yeah, you've done everything you needed to. You didn't really need to overtake people around the outside either. You wanted to win this championship by racing hard, even though we're coming at the late stages of this of the 8 weeks.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm definitely playing it safe, but moves like that, you've got to take them. You can't just sit behind. It makes for a boring race. I think you need to go for moves. You need to keep it interesting, and that's what we're doing. Happy with the result. We got fastest lap as well, so same points as a race win.
Yeah, on the second place.
Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Yes, once again, apologies for a couple of the technical issues. We are going to try and persevere and chat to our third place finisher within the Cup class, Elliot Dalton Ayres. Elliot, well done. There on a long run, it is a tough place this on tyres, isn't it? Were you struggling with that?
No, well, kind of. I was struggling with heating the tyres up. I mean, I've had to put them up an extra 2 psi because they just didn't turn on. So hopefully those extra psi in the tyres will make the difference, and I can be a little bit quicker off the start.
Ah, that's interesting, actually. So it was the early run pace then that hindered you. You're going to need all the grip you can get in the start of this second race now. Reverse grid, chaos ahead. How confident are you that you can capitalise on that?
Oh, we'll see how it goes. I mean, as you said, race 2 chaos. It's always interesting. There's usually 3 people pointing in the wrong direction, but hey, we'll give it our best shot and see what happens.
Fingers crossed you're not one of them, Elliot. Well done on the podium, and we'll hopefully speak to you again later on tonight.
Hopefully. Cheers, Andy.
So that's your Cup Class podium done with. Right then, Jack and Ben Smith, over to you two again.
Yes, welcome back, Ben Smith. Firstly, congratulations on a race win. I was going to start with the quick-fire questions, but actually, Paul Larrabee gave you a bit of a headache in those first 2 laps, didn't he?
Yeah, that was good fun, to be fair. He's much more aggressive on the start than I am. I tend to be a bit of a lamby-pamby when it comes to the first corner, so he sent it around the outside, so fair play. And I got him back on the next lap, and then I think maybe he struggled a bit with the consistency to stay with me, but all in all, pretty good fun.
Namby-pamby probably is the media-trained way of saying that. Yeah, it did look like really good fun. He was sort of having to hang around the outside and having to brake quite late, trail braking after him, and he was very aggressive. He really opened that gap up, didn't he, on the inside going into that final couple of corners.
Yeah, that was good. No, it's nice to race against Paul. It's always good fun.
It is indeed, yeah. We're enjoying watching you guys do it as well. Right, very quickly, because the interviews have to go quite quickly. Marvel or DC?
Neither.
Oh, okay. McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
Good. Domino's or Pizza Hut?
Domino's every day.
Yeah, well done. Spider-Man or Iron Man? I know you just said neither, but here we go.
I'll take Spider-Man.
And finally, iRacing or AC?
AC.
Oh, he's not been kicked out. We're going to congratulate him and let him leave on his own accord then. It's a bit like Graham Norton. We won't flip the chair. Right, thank you very much, Ben Smith. We'll probably be chatting to you a little later on.
Cheers.
He slowly redeemed himself with some of the later answers, there, didn't he? Right, Paul, I'm not going to ask you any questions like that. Don't worry. I am going to ask you, though, for your perspective on what was a fantastic battle early doors there with Ben. We just heard him say how much he enjoyed it. I'm sure you enjoyed having a spell in the lead, too.
Yeah, it's good fun to have a better battle at the start. Couldn't quite keep up with his pace and consistency through the rest of the race, but a few laps were good fun. Just tried to force my way through a little bit into that kind of long right-hander, which kind of worked quite well, but just couldn't quite hold the position. But yeah, it's good fun.
Once he got through, the gap did then build up. Was there a mistake from yourself, or was it just a kind of gradual process?
Yeah, I think more plural to that, Andy. Some mistakes along the way. Yeah, and it's so consistent. Yeah. But
easier said than done, isn't it? Consistency around a track like this, Paul. But best of luck for the second race. Confident that you might be able to give him another bit of a fight in this one?
I'll have another go. It's good fun.
Good stuff. Hope you can, Paul. Very best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
And finally, back on the podium again, after an entertaining start to the race, Chris Blakey. He catches up now with Jack.
Yes, Chris, it was an entertaining start to the race from our perspective, because you went stage exit right, didn't you?
I did, yes. It snapped and I couldn't catch it, and it spat me off. Because just as Paul did a fantastic move to get past, then I thought, oh, can I capitalise here? Is it going to be contact? And no, it just snapped on me. I couldn't catch it.
Well, I will say that you can watch it back, Chris, because we did catch it in the background, unfortunately, because we were watching the battle just ahead of you. But I'm going to have to let you go because ultimately there is another race to go and compete in. So good luck with you, and hopefully we'll have another chat to you, a bit longer one.
Good stuff. Right then, they were your podium finishers from the pair of classes in the first race of the evening, as Jack said quite rightly. Race 2 coming up now, reversed grid race. And, well, we've got Larrabee on the front of the grid. I think we're a bit of a glitch with the grid, but anyway, it doesn't matter, they'll all come together again by the time they get through the first corner. Hopefully not literally. Off they go then towards the first turn. Andy Carroll, I think, is going to try and burst through the 2 Caymans to get the lead of the race. That's Andy Dorman and Craig Curtis. Banging doors again. Josh Martin absolutely sideswipes Andy Dorman. That will not go down very well at all. They were rubbing doors anyway. And then suddenly Josh Martin came out of nowhere and got involved too. But it's Carroll who leads them off the first chicane. Martin is in second, but perhaps one friend fewer than he was at the start of the race. And Ethan Hill, with whom we had that terrific early battle in race 1, slots in behind him with third, but there's contact. then they've both gone around, and that's, well, Andy Dorman will say, was a bit of instant karma for Josh Martin. Poor old Ethan Hill spinning as well, and that means Carroll leads now. Eric Axelson, and what were you saying about Carl Felvers making his way forward in reverse grid races, Jack?
I even claimed third place as well, didn't I? I even claimed it. If we were taking odds on this championship, I'd be the best tipster out there. It was really good, though, by Carl Felvers, wasn't it, to avoid all of that. There was a little bit too much contact involving Josh Martin. It looked like, to be fair, it's a steward's inquiry, and there'll be different angles and different perspectives. But, oh, Craig Curtis takes a spin as he hits the curb too hard, and Nicky Taylor has to cut across the corner there as well. Not sure whether that was because he was taking avoiding action, as Paul Laramie just decides to cut the entire corner as well. But lots of drama here on the first opening couple of corners, but it's left Andy Carroll in the race lead. Eric Axelson in second place, Carl Felvers in third, Nicky Taylor in fourth, Elliot Dalton-Ayres fifth, and our race one winner, Jay Warren, down in sixth position. But it's going to be a long way until we actually figure out who's going to be where in this particular race. Don't you worry. Paul Laramie and Ben Smith. Laramie leading the way from Smith at the moment.
Except I think Laramie just drove off the racetrack, and so I think Ben Smith might be back alongside him now. Let's look in the background. No, he managed to fend him off. Josh Martin comes through on the inside nearly. Laramie says, absolutely not. I'm shutting the door on you because I'm busy battling Ben Smith for the class lead. Brilliant racing again in the early stages between these two, as Josh Martin and Ethan Hill have got themselves back together once again. They've had a couple of battles tonight, one clean, one less so. Hopefully they can continue some good clean side-by-side racing now, as I'm sure will Laramie and Smith. Laramie goes in defensive at the last corner. That means he's slow on the exit. Ben Smith gets the superior traction, and he is going to drag his way through. So Ben Smith gets back to the lead. Laramie slots back in behind, and well, let's see now whether Laramie can cut out some of those mistakes that he referenced in race one and try and come back at Smith.
Yeah, I don't think Smith really, he's not bothering defending this one. I think he enjoys the battle. He could have probably made that a little bit harder on Paul Laramie, but he likes the challenge, he likes the battle, and I think Laramie does as well. In fact, he's almost trying to drive off the circuit. Laramie forcing him off there, not letting him have an inch of space around Paul Ricard. As they go through the turn 3 and 4, it's Laramie who takes the lead and retains it. I tell you what, if Chris Blakey can actually follow in and do exactly what he wanted to do in race 1, take advantage, it's going to be a very difficult race for Ben Smith.
Ben Smith's trying to overtake in places it shouldn't be possible to overtake. Paul Laramie really driving defensively, and Ben Smith just sort of going where he isn't. Laramie moves over to the inside of the road. Ben Smith will have the momentum though, draws level. This is the outside line into the chicane. Can he do what Carl Felvers did in race 1, go around the outside of the left-hander, get the inside for the right-hander? Laramie's going to be desperately late on the brakes, hops over the curb on the inside. An interesting interpretation of track limits, but he's wide anyway. He's definitely over track limits there. Pops back onto the circuit in front of Ben Smith, but this is a very, very defensive Paul Laramie. Ben Smith has sort of got him on the ropes here, hasn't he? And as long as they battle, the closer Chris Blakey and Sal Milner get, this could legitimately become a four-way.
I think I lost you there, Andy. I'm not entirely sure whether you're still there or not, but Eric Axelson is in the lead of this race, with Andy Carroll having a bit of a headache from Kyle Felvers. Kyle saying that he's definitely playing it slightly safer here, but ultimately, if the move is there, he wants to try and take it. He wants to entertain himself and his fans, of course, mainly to sort of stop himself from getting a little bit bored, because ultimately, you want to win a championship, you don't want to do it dull, do you? You want to have something to talk about. You want to have something to shout about.
Yes, you do, and he's going to be keen to try and get past Andy Carroll here, because I think he will reckon he's got the pace over Eric Axelson. Look at the better exit speed again that he got. Exit speed so crucial around so many corners here at Paul Ricard. Carl Felvers very aware of that. Gets to the inside at turn 3, and he goes through. So Felvers to second place, Carroll third, Dalton-Ayres in fourth. Looks up the inside line. That's an aggressive move. Did it work? Dalton-Ayres wants to try and go with Felvers. It didn't quite pay off though, and look what's happened. He's now got Nicky Taylor and Jay Warren behind him. So Jay Warren, not for the first time this season, not making the sort of electrifying progress through the field in race 2 that the likes of Carl Felvers is able to do, and that means that Warren is stuck down in 6th place, but at least gaining now on the group of cars ahead as they continue to battle.
Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. I don't know if Dalton-Ayres is going aggressive or he's going defensive. I think he's having to do a little bit of both, isn't he? Right in the thick of this little sandwich that they've got going on. As Andy Carroll skips over the curves, it's going to hurt his exit speed. Elliot Dalton he doesn't quite have it, but Nicky Taylor might actually go down to the bottom end of the circuit. It's going to be a bit dodgy to try and overtake there. I think Dalton is going again defensive. Oh, whether he's going aggressive, I'm not entirely sure. He's gone aggressive and he's overtaken Andy Carroll. Going into the final sector 3, Andy Carroll goes wide and lets all 3 of them through.
Yeah, Andy Carroll, I don't think he meant to do that, but it might be for the best, honestly, because these 3 were coming through whether he liked it or not. Not ideal, that, really, for Dalton Ayres, though. He would have liked Carroll to slot in behind him and then defend a bit from Nicky Taylor and the rest. Meanwhile, Paul Laramie continues to lead in the Cayman Class. This is fantastic stuff. Ben Smith into the now there's definitely contact there, but no harm, no foul. They both just about managed to keep it within track limits. Paul Laramie ain't going to move out of the way here, is he? He's running very wide. They've all gone wide, going out of the right-hander. They are all driving up to and I think a little bit beyond the limits of adhesion as Ben Smith now tries to go the long way round. He's going to make that one stick. I think Laramie perhaps is letting him go, and Ben Smith gets into the lead of the race. I'm not sure why Laramie would be letting him go, maybe because he felt that he exceeded track limits and gained an advantage. Either way, Ben Smith gets his way through into the lead.
Yeah, and it's somewhat ruins our fun, doesn't it? Ruins effort. Oh, Jay Warren decides to try and go pond skipping elsewhere, I think, because he's just gone absolutely wide. There he is, rejoining the circuit after ignoring half the track. He has not gained an advantage, definitely not gained an advantage. He's dropped off the back of Nicky Taylor here. But it's not ideal for the driver, is it? Who won, obviously, race 1 and had pole position. Here, stuck in 5th place somewhat and is struggling to maybe stop overdriving the car.
Yeah, just a little bit, but Jay Warren in 5th position, not a million miles behind this group. If they, again, keep battling, then he might still be able to close in. Now, I'm interested in what's happening at the front of the field here, Jack, because I, for one, expected Carl Felvers to be able to eat into this advantage held by Eric Axelsen. He is on this lap, in fairness, purple in sector 1, Carl Felvers, but only half a tenth quicker than Eric Axelsen. So Axelsen's going quickly as well. And on the previous lap, actually, Eric Axelsen was about half a second faster. So Axelsen is continuing to increase this lead. If you give Eric Axelsen clean air on a track that he knows and enjoys, this track really suits his very smooth driving style, doesn't it, really? He is a difficult man to catch.
Yeah, everything is falling perfectly for him right now, somewhat, isn't it? You're right. It's the conditions he likes, with no cars ahead of him, in a car that, you know, with a smooth driving style, like you mentioned just then, and the aerodynamics that... I think Kyle and Dalton Ayres just gone purple in sector 2. He could still be a force to be reckoned with and a bit of a headache for Eric, but you're right, it's purple, it's green, but only by half a tenth of a second or so. Not enough to worry Eric for this time being. Unlike Dalton Ayres, who although maybe he's just gone purple sector 2, he does have something to worry about, and in the form of move being made here in for third place, sooner rather than later.
Yep, I think you might be right. Down towards turn number 3 they head. Nicky Taylor wanting to get on with this again. He can see Felvers pulling away. He's got no pressure at the moment from Jay Warren behind, so now is the time to attack. Look at the way he really runs that curve through the left-hander. I don't know whether you've ever driven this circuit in Assetto Corsa in particular, Jack, but riding those curves through that corner, it really helps turn the car there. Really aggressive curves, and they're serrated as well, so you'd think there'd be no grip there whatsoever, but if you handle the curves right, it sort of bounces the car around the corner. Really and figure a way through in they're continuing to challenge as they head out onto the second part of the Mistral Straight. Taylor trying every trick in the book here, but for now, Jack just can't quite find a way through.
No, it's the only battle that we've really got as well on circuit, isn't it? If we're looking back even at the GT4s, Ben Smith has pulled out, I think, about a second one. Craig Curtis is a little... battles we've got as well as Nicky Taylor, Elliot Dalton Ayres. So yeah, the GT3 Cup a lot closer than the likes of the GT4 category, especially this Josh Martin, Craig Curtis battle, and of course Nicky Taylor, Elliot Dalton Ayres. The GT4 has somewhat sort of faded away once again, with Paul Laramie just dropping off Ben Smith by the tune of 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, really, isn't it? After the brilliant racing earlier on, my word, Josh Martin. That wasn't a move, that was an accident. He just managed to not hit it. As he absolutely sent it up the inside of Craig Curtis. Craig Curtis now trying to come back at him, actually, because unsurprisingly, Josh didn't get a great exit from the corner. And as they turn through the first turn, Craig Curtis has to play second fiddle. Aggressive stuff there from Josh Martin. Aggressive defence here, though, Jack, from Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who for the time being stays in third place.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nicky Taylor meets Josh Martin down the post office, actually, as they both buy stamps to send it, because Nicky is crawling all over the back of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And I have to say, I'm quite glad that Andy didn't hear me say that analogy, because he was trying to leave and rejoin Discord to try and make it work a little bit smoother. But you can watch it back, Andy. I think it's a good little reference that I just made there. Anyway, Dalton-Ayres going very, very defensive. Taylor trying maybe the Carl Felvers route around the outside. We heard Kyle say there was plenty of room for it, but as Dalton-Ayres launches himself all over the curves, there's still not enough room for Nicky to get that entry. But can he get the exit? I don't think he's quite had that as clean as he would like.
No, not really. And so Dalton-Ayres will breathe a sigh of relief, will stay in third for now. And Nicky Taylor has to wait for another opportunity. There are places where you can make a lunge here, but only really one or two where you can sort of do something about it yourself. And one of the other places where you can make an overtake, you kind of have to rely on a mistake from the car ahead. I thought maybe there was one coming there from Dalton-Ayres. He was very sideways. Seen lots of drivers getting sideways up through that part of the circuit. These cars front-end limited, as we've mentioned, so drivers, I think, sometimes taking matters into their own hands, sort of getting the car sideways deliberately almost to try and help the rotation through the corner, and it worked for Dalton-Ayres, but he's still keeping Nicky Taylor at arm's length here.
Just about. It's arm's length, very short arms, more like a T-Rex's arm's length, isn't it? I think it's parts of the circuit which allows him just to stave off the attack from Nicky Taylor. It is so important that he can continue to keep the consistency, because if he can just stay quick coming out of the corner onto the back straight and out of the corner onto the back off the chicane, sorry, that just gives Nicky Taylor a bit of a headache. But he's going to try around the outside. I don't think that's going to come off, no, because it's a very long, almost right hand, left hand, and then straight. We will see Nicky Taylor, I imagine, having a bit more of a run. No, I think he went for a move halfway through. He didn't quite get there. Jay Warren is almost within touching distance of Nicky Taylor, as Nicky is to Dalton-Ayres.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Jay Warren, after that moment that he had a couple of laps ago, just picking his way back into contention perhaps. And again, he'll be hoping that those two continue to battle three very different lines through the chicane. You can just about see from that camera angle, a couple of them getting a bit sideways, getting a bit loose on the way off the corner. Back in the Cayman class, meanwhile, well, a lot of attention has been given to Ben Smith versus Paul Laramie this championship, but I've really been enjoying the battle between Chris Blakey and Sam Milner for third in the championship, and they're together again, and both actually behind Kenny Press, who's putting in another really solid race 2 performance for the second week in a row, Jack.
He is indeed, and it's also interesting watching these guys, because you mentioned in qualifying it looks quite difficult to drive these cars around Paul Ricard. But then we spoke to Dan Smith, and he sort of said, yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but watching him makes it look very easy. Watching these guys here, you get to see how much the car moves around. Maybe the reactions are slightly slower. Maybe they're just not quite as used to it as the likes of Ben Smith is. But you sort of see the car move, and then they have to catch it, and they snap. And that's what Chris Blakey was talking about in the very short word that we had managed to have with him before this race, is the fact that they are difficult. The car moves, the car slides, and if you're not quite on it 100%, it will go. What I do like about these cars rather than the GT3s, though, is the fact if the car does start to go, there is that moment where you can catch it. And it doesn't have to end up in a spin, because ultimately the GT3s, if the car starts to go, it will fully go. Speaking of fully gone, Jay Warren has gone up the inside of Nicky Taylor, who's not allowed that gap to close. Warren sees the pink CAMMUS liveried that car on his inside, and Warren has managed to keep it there around the outside. Fair play to him.
Yeah, good racing that between the two of them. Jay Warren manages to get through then. Again, significant for the championship coming into tonight. Remember, Nicky Taylor second in the points, Jay Warren fourth, but only 11 points between them. Taylor trying to come back at Jay, but Jay weaving over there, partly to block and partly, I think, just try and break the toe. But then Nicky Taylor breaks ranks, goes to the inside into the chicane. Warren late on the brakes. There's always going to be a squeeze on the apex, but they avoided contact. Good racing. Now, is that going to give Nicky Taylor a better exit? Well, maybe slightly, and he's definitely got the toe. And in fact, yeah, look, Jay Warren has to go to the right-hand side of the road to block. He's going to force Nicky Taylor the long way round, but we've seen before this can work if you're feeling brave. But Nicky Taylor decides not to do it, cuts back to the late apex, and tries to get to the inside line into the next corner. I don't think it's quite going to work, and Jay Warren will now stay in front. Brilliant racing that between the two of them, and Jay Warren picks up a place, picks up an extra couple of points against Nicky Taylor. Jay Warren for second place in this championship is definitely still on, and Nicky Taylor knows it, goes back on the inside line. Terrific side-by-side battling between the two of them, and it's not quite going to work.
Fair play to them. That is pretty astonishing, isn't it? The fact that they haven't actually made any contact with each other. To be honest, that's really, really good racing, and I'm enjoying every single second of it. And even if it is allowing the likes of Dalton Ayres to really get away, Jay Warren in fourth place, Nicky Taylor in fifth, which is where he finished, obviously, in race one, which we theorise he wasn't very happy with. We don't know. We weren't speaking to him. But he's a driver that likes to win, or nothing else is really good enough for Nicky Taylor, which is a winning attitude. Not a bad one to have as a racing driver, so we can only assume that fighting for fourth is enjoyable for him, but he won't be particularly pleased with it from a championship point of view. Having said that, remember in the last, I think it was last week's interview or the week before, Andy, that Nicky Taylor said he actually prefers the prize for third place rather than second, so maybe this is all part of the plan.
Yes, maybe. Right, up
maybe.
Towards the middle part of another lap they go. If you believe that, you will believe anything, as they say. Nicky Taylor wants to win, and I won't hear anything else about it. Yes, I'm sure he'd like the prize for second place, but he can always donate his champion's prize, and he wasn't that interested in keeping it to Carl Felvis. I'm sure he'd still like to have the winner's trophy, if nothing else. But right now, that doesn't look likely to happen, and in fact, second place, perhaps not even looking that likely the way that this race is developing. Now, the way this race is developing for Carl Felvis is very similar, isn't it, Jack, to the way his first race developed, because he was solid at the start of the race. Obviously, he's made some brilliant progress in this one, as we documented earlier on, but it's his long-run pace that really sets him apart. Carl Felvis closing in now on Eric Axelsen. This gap was up towards 2 seconds at one point. We made the point that Axelsen was actually faster than Kyle in the first half of the race, but with 6.5 minutes to go, this gap is well under a second, and it keeps on coming down.
Yeah, the Sector 1 difference is about 0.6 of a second, roughly 0.6 of a second in favour of Kyle Felvis. And Sector 2, it was about half a tenth difference in it as well. So let's just round it up and say 7/10 that Kyle Felvis has managed to gain on Eric Axelsen just through the first two sectors. Jay Warren has also just gone green Sector 1 and 2 as well. So he's slightly pulling away from Nicky Taylor as well. Worth noting, this is almost within half a second now between Axelsen and Felvis, and we saw Felvis didn't put that much pressure on Jay Warren. He didn't send moves left, right, and centre and really try and put Warren offline. He was happy with second place, but you know, he's sort of got a little bit more space behind him now. He said he wants to race. He wants to race hard. Will we see a bit more of an aggressive stance from him before he does battle and has a look and sees who's in his rearview mirrors? We might see a lap or two where Felvis really wants this race win, and on that lap alone, I think he gained 0.8 of a second. Very impressive by Felvis. You can see it on your screen. The battle's raging.
And again, really uses that curve. He's got the car underneath him. He's got the circuit figured out, and he's moving now up to challenge. And actually has given himself longer in this race to challenge than he did against Jay Warren in the first race of the night. Now, I'll confess, I haven't done the maths yet because it's all complicated because of drop scores. But I think a race win here, or even second place, quite frankly, would more or less be enough to give Carl Felvis the championship. But he wants to win that on a high and on the top step of the race podium. Defensive line there from Axelsen into the chicane. You can see the subtle difference in lines that leads to mid-chicane. But actually, exit speed decent for Axelsen, maybe fractionally better for Carl Felvis. But actually, no, the gap was just creeping up over 0.3 of a second slightly, as they initially accelerated, then the slipstream starts to take effect. You're on board with Felvers, pitches it into Senior. Corner goes on just a bit too long, really, doesn't it? So easy to understeer wide, then ride the curve on the left to wide at the entry point to the right-hander. And then, did you see that, Jack's little twitch mid-corner? I think that's that little bit of the dirty air kicking in for Carl Felvers. He couldn't quite follow the same tight line as Eric Axelsson, and that, I think, is why he's moving around trying to find the clean air. Axelsson made a bit of a mistake there, though, and Felvers has gained back any time that he previously lost.
It's astonishing, really, because when you actually watch the car and watch him turn it and everything like that, there's lots of you won't have noted it anywhere near as much as Carl Felvers would have done through his wheel and everything like that, but he's actually turning the car and the wheel is pretty much straight as he was doing it, wasn't it? Which shows how much slip, but also how much control he's got and how much he knows what's going to happen, how consistent he can be with that as well, without scrubbing off too much time, without overheating the tyres. He's driving it pretty perfectly, even in the wash, even in the slipstream and everything like that, which is difficult to drive these cars in. It is going very, very well for Felvers. I'm very, very impressed with how he's driving it.
Yeah, absolutely. As we have been all season, really, he has demonstrated terrific maturity, fantastic raw speed. And now, again, we're seeing some of that fantastic, that canny racecraft that he's got. We talk about racecraft, Jack, a lot, and we think about overtaking or defending, but just applying pressure to another driver, that's all part of racecraft as well. And knowing where to position the car so that you're not being sort of hindered by the line that they're taking, and perhaps to try and fill the mirrors of the car ahead as well. That's something that Carl quite clearly has a deep understanding of. And right now, he's having a pretty good look at the inside line into the chicane. This is the penultimate lap of the race, I reckon. So he's going to have one more lap to have a go. Was that maybe a bit of a dress rehearsal for the final lap? I'm not so sure. If he can get a chance to attack before then he will. But certainly that part of the circuit, Kyle looks quick and he looks likely to try and make a move.
Yeah, you might be right. He might be lining it up. He might be giving Eric Axelsson something to think about, because not only will we be thinking about that now, not only will Kyle be thinking about it, but Eric Axelsson will also be thinking about it as well. And he'll be thinking, okay, he looked keen there. He looked like he might have had a look. I'm now going to have to potentially defend next time round. And whether Eric likes it or not, he will. Oh, I think that was a bit of a trick with the camera. I thought Felvers just completely missed the braking zone. Whether Eric likes it or not, he will drive that corner differently next time. If he's not careful, he has to be really hot on it. The concentration levels have to be sky high. So otherwise, subconsciously, he'll be thinking about what Kyle wants to do. He'll be coming out the next 2 or 3 corners thinking, what will he want to do? Where do I need to put the car? What do I need to do? And ultimately, that's exactly what Kyle wants him as well. That psychological race move that we used to talk about so much, Andy, Kyle is lining it up, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are easier drivers to unsettle, though, than Eric Axelsson, has to be said. So this is not going to be an easy move at all through the first couple of corners. They go again, and Kyle Felvers with a sterling performance already tonight. Can he cap it off with a race victory? Had to settle for second in race number 1. Is he going to do the same in race 2? He's right up behind Axelsson, almost within touching distance now. He's going to try and set himself up for a good run off this next corner. Again, they are catching a back mark, and this is Sam Milner, I think, that they're about to put a lap down. In almost it's Mark Stokes, excuse me, in exactly the same part of the circuit that they caught the back marker on the last lap of race 1. But this time around, no doubt about it, Felvers is closer than he was a lap ago. They're both going to go to the inside of the back marker. Does Felvers try and make it 3 wide? Is he going to commit to the inside line? I think he is. He's got the overlap. Axelsson late on the brakes, turns across the nose of Carl Felvers, and for now, Jack hangs on.
Yeah, fair play to Eric Axelsson. I thought he just about ran out of room, but it looks like Felvers has lined up the exit instead and is going to go round the outside, ignoring the GT4 car. I think Kyle would have had the move done, but as they go into the final couple of corners of the circuit, no, look at the closing speed there, and there's contact. Eric Axelsson gets nudged out wide. Kyle comes off the throttle, to be fair, and allows Eric back onto the circuit. Good racing from then. Hopefully, no blood has been boiled from Eric Axelsson there, and he can keep it calm for the last couple of corners.
And I reckon that might be it now. Oh, no, maybe not. I was going to say Felvers might settle for second. Anything but. He was again up the inside into the left-hander, but I think he is now running out of time. Really, just one more overtake the opportunity to go, and it would be quite a risky lunge into the final corner. I don't really think he's in a position to be trying that. Eric Axelsen looks as though he's going to hang on to the victory. Kyle Felvers second. Is going to be a real drag race off the final corner, though. Felvers much quicker off the final turn, but has a face full of red and black Porsche, and that is enough to deny him. Eric Axelsen crosses the line by a tenth of a second, is victorious in the second race of the night here at Paul Ricard. It's a third victory of the season for him as well, with Felvers once again having to settle for second place. A great battle going on behind Josh Martin on the inside of Andy Dorman, into the side of Andy Dorman, and around they both go. That's not the first time that Josh Martin's been pointing the wrong way in this race, and not the first time really that it's come from a little bit of avoidable contact. That one certainly was not Andy Dorman's fault. Craig Curtis and Andy Carroll continue their battle further back. Behind them, Jack, it's all a little bit more sedate for our double Cayman class winner.
Yeah, it's Ben Smith still rotating, probably thinking about what questions I'm going to ask him about 30 seconds' time. Chris Blakey, though, has managed to just about get onto the podium yet again, with Paul Laramie obviously in second place. I say obviously, it's a fair play to Paul Laramie. Second place is still no mean feat. But yeah, Chris Blakey has done well. I don't think he's got too much of a problem from Kenny Press behind. It's about a second and a half is the gap. And we'll be able to hopefully have a bit of an elongated word with Chris, who obviously we didn't have much of a chat with after the first race. But Ben Smith has been somewhat superb around here. I think he was somewhat playing with Paul Laramie earlier on. I think Paul was a lot more aggressive. I don't think Sam likes to risk the tyres and risk a spin or anything like that and get mixed up the GT3s. But once he got past, we run out of superlatives, don't we, Andy? Fantastic.
Yes, indeed. Right then, we'll hear from our podium finishers in just a couple of minutes' time. Well, race number 2 complete here from Paul Ricard. Another race that went right down to the wire in the Cup class, at least, as Carl Felvers once again was denied a race victory, this time by less than a tenth of a second. And it was Eric Axelsen who denied him, claiming his third victory of the season. And Eric, that was an important race victory as far as your quest to try and finish inside the top 3 in the championship is concerned, but not an easy victory to claim.
That was tough. I needed that, to be honest. I have no idea how the standings look. I haven't looked at the standings since, like, I don't know, like round like 4 or 5. But yeah, this was fun. This was really good.
Fun at the end there. I'm sure you enjoyed the bit where you were 2 seconds in the lead as well, because at that point it looked like you were just going to sail home, and actually Kyle was putting in some good laps, but you were matching him for a bit. What was it that changed, do you think, in the final 10 minutes that allowed Kyle to close in?
I don't know, to be honest, because as you said, like for the first like 15 minutes, I felt like we kept the same pace, and then you know, all of a sudden I started to do some small like mistakes here and there, you know. Was like going wide in a few places, so I think it was mostly my fault. You know, not being able to stay like focused for so long, but because I didn't have much practice as well, so I was really like surprised to find myself on that pace. But yeah, Kyle is so fast, and yeah, he caught me up there, and we had a good battle the last lap. That was great.
Yeah, talk us through that last lap from your perspective then. It all got a bit close at one point, nothing too rough, but there was a bit of contact between the two of you. And then even after that, Kyle didn't let you have it easy. I thought maybe out of the final corner even, he might have been able to beat you to the line. It was pretty stressful stuff from inside the car, I'm sure.
It was stressful, yeah. I tried, all I had to. I was super defensive, and I felt like I parked it almost on the last apex on the last corner because I was so he was so close. He was all over the place. He was all over my back, and yeah, that was really tough. I'm really glad I got it in the end.
Yeah, great to have you back on the top step of the podium. A third victory of the season as well. Not a bad return to full-time racing here at the VRRC, Eric. Well done, and we'll catch you again next week, hopefully.
Thank you, Andy.
So Eric Axelson then victorious in the second race here at Paul Ricard. Another second place finish for Carl Felvers, but I think when he sees the point standings, Jack, he won't be too disappointed.
No, we'll keep that to one side for the time being, though. Kyle, has your heart recovered from that little incident with Eric right at the death? I thought there was going to be a little bit too much contact at one point.
Yeah, I think it was close, but we got through safely. Eric went slower than I expected through the corner, which, to be fair, he was on the inside. All fair play to him, to be honest. Gave him a slight nudge. I don't think the car should have gone that far, but, we lifted off, we let him have it back, and then we went again, and it just didn't pay off.
You look like you really enjoyed tonight, because obviously you slightly maybe had the pressure of you were quick as well. Like that does help, doesn't it, when you're trying to score these consistent points? You maybe even had the pace on another night in another championship. You would have gone for a double race win here. How much have you enjoyed this evening, rather than sort of like, even though you're having to think about the championship, it looked like you were driving without pressure, which is the most impressive thing, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I was just taking it like it was round one. You just go out there, you try and score the most points that you can. But in the back of your mind, you are thinking, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash, because obviously the championship is important. But yeah, we were just trying to enjoy it. I think Paul Ricard, it's a really, really good circuit. Most people look down on it. I think because of F1, it's not so great for racing. But when you take these GT-style cars over to it, it's an absolutely brilliant track. And I think, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it tonight.
My dad used to have the same thought process whenever I went out in the car, to be honest, saying just don't crash, just don't crash, just don't crash. It was awful. But yeah, no, in Paul Ricard, like we were saying earlier, I'm glad you sort of echo the sentiment that we think it's a very good circuit for anything that isn't a Formula One car, basically. We always enjoy it, and we're hoping that we come back here a fair few more times, and I'm sure you do as well. Going into Silverstone, thought process. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say the media train style thing, aren't you, really? I'll just take it round by round and race by race and all that sort of thing. But you must know that you've got one hand on the trophy by now. Surely that sort of gives you a little bit of butterflies.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was doing some calculations a minute ago. I think we're in a good place. But yeah, just go into Silverstone, do the exact same thing as tonight, and just race it like it's the first round and try and get those points.
Well, it will be your first championship car, which is a weird thing to say considering how long you've been with us. We could have sworn that you'd won one before, but it'd be a deserved one. It's been one of the best drives we've seen in any championship as a champion, potentially anyway. So congratulations on the two races today, and you never know, we'll hopefully be speaking to you next week.
Thanks, Shep.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carl Felvers, I think, as I said, will be very, very confident going to the last round that he'll be able to bring it home. Now, third place in that race, Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Another podium finish for you, Elliot. 2 in a night. That's pretty good going. But again, you had a bit of a fight on your hands there to make that one stick, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just Nicky made a mistake at the chicane. He's obviously hit the bollard a bit weird, and it's lifted the front of his car. So I went around the outside of him, and I can tell he was a little bit mad with that because he started making a couple of mistakes here and there, and then he had a go at me, which allowed Jay to get in front of him, and he just battled, and that slowed them both down. So after that, it was a pretty smooth sailing race.
Yeah, pretty smooth sailing towards the end. I don't think next week is going to be smooth sailing for you at all, though. I don't know whether you've had a chance to look at the championship standings. You're still second, but only 4 points ahead of Jay and 5 ahead of Nicky. It's going to be an all-out brawl between you three at Silverstone. How confident are you that you can net that second place prize?
I don't know. I mean, Silverstone's never been too kind for me. I'm usually all right with pace, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, anything can happen. One of us can lag out, one of us can crash. You know, we'll just have to see.
Loving the optimism, Elliot. Very best of luck for next week, and it's going to be quite the fight to watch either way. Best of luck for that, mate.
Cheers, Andy.
So Elliot Zoltanair's third place. Now we have, well, whisper it, a provisional champion in the cup class. However, Jack, if my maths are correct, and they're not always, Ben Smith has not quite yet wrapped up the Cayman class. I think he still needs to turn up next week and score a point in order to do enough. So I don't think he's going to get his dream of racing in the cup car just yet.
Oh, well, that's a shame. It was one of my dreams to see with the Cup Car as well, to be fair. But Ben, a pretty productive evening by the sounds of it. But you must be fairly happy.
Yeah, I am indeed. I was a bit frustrated with myself going into the back of Paul there, but I just had a word with him, and it seems like he was trying to give it back. I was trying to go around the outside. So there's a bit of miscommunication there, but all in all, yeah, that was good.
Oh, so no bad blood, no hard feelings between the two of you?
Nah, of course not. None of that
Not
around
on your
here.
side, anyway. We'll have a chat with Paul in a second. It was a very impressive evening from you, and it was good fun to watch the GT4s have that little bit of battle at the beginning of each of the races. So is that something you're hoping can carry on into Silverstone? Because Paul might, you never know. Paul could turn up and show you a thing or two at Silverstone. He has been quick there before.
Yeah, he could indeed. I might see if I can speak to Paul and see if we can maybe both go up into the Cup Car. I'm not sure if he'd be willing to do that, but that could be a possibility. But I'll speak to him about that. But yeah, either way, Silverstone, really like the track, so we'll just see how it goes.
No offense, but I really like the idea of him snaking you and saying, "Yeah, we'll both go up." And then all of a sudden, bang! You see him on the GT4 grid, and all of a sudden he takes home the victory. Obviously, don't want to see that. But finally, Ben, last couple of quick fires for the evening. Just to get to know you a little bit more, obviously. Are you ready? Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Lord of the Rings.
Thank God. Endurance racing or sprint racing?
Oof. Sprint.
Sprint. Favorite Olympic sport? There is a right answer here, but I won't kick you out.
Oh, that's tricky. Do you like athletics? Athletics.
Athletics, to be fair, yeah, that's a half decent one. The right answer was handball, but we'll let it go. NASCAR or touring cars?
Oh,
touring cars. Any day. Any day, touring cars.
Yes, he's on my side. And finally, the last one of the evening. Last week, you said you were a football fan rather than a rugby fan. Newcastle or AC Milan tonight?
Newcastle.
Damn right, he passes. See you later, Ben Smith. We'll see you next week.
Now, I've fallen out with him, I'm afraid. Anyway, let's move swiftly on, shall we, to Paul Laramie, who I'm sure is a NASCAR fan like me, aren't you, Paul? Second place in that one, but what a battle you had in the early stages.
Yeah, it's good fun. I thought I'd done a bit of inner John Jones and see if I could have a bit of a battle at the beginning. I had to give the place back in the end because I did miss the chicane by quite a bit. Yes, I did wait for the next corner to hand it back. Unfortunately, Ben didn't know I was going to hand the place back and just drove at the back of me. But it was all right. It's a good fun battle.
It was, wasn't it? I mean, it's a difficult place to defend, isn't it, this? Because you go defensive into one corner, you slow into the next. I was quite impressed, actually. You managed to sort of make that work for so long. Yeah,
it's really hard because they can get... Ben likes to take the outside line and get the overspeed. So you're trying... And you can't... You want to stay on the brakes a little bit longer to corners and apexes. It doesn't quite work here as it can do in other places. So... Yeah, Ben is really fast. You're kind of willing him to have a spin at some point, but he hasn't done it so far the championship. So
no, he doesn't make many mistakes, does he?
No.
Does Ben Smith? But like I said, I think he's not quite got this wrapped up. But really, it looks like he's got the championship now. But second place for you. It's still been a good season, actually. If Ben wasn't here, you were the dominant force, really, in the Cayman class, weren't you? So, are you happy with your driving over the course of the 7 weeks?
Yeah, it's been really good actually. Really enjoyed said Rich earlier on. I really enjoyed the car. I think this Porsche car is a really good fun car to drive. It's got enough of a handling to it that you're not constantly spinning out on it. It drifts a little bit, it moves around a bit, but it's controllable. So it's one of the most enjoyable cars I think we've done actually so far. And I've enjoyed the tracks. Ben is very consistent. It's been good to see Chris come up behind me, but it's been good fun.
Excellent stuff, Paul. Thank you very much for having a chat. I'm sure it's not the last time we'll speak to you, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Andy. See you next week.
And finally, Chris Blakey comes home in third place, and he can chat now with Jack Oliphant.
Evening, guys.
If Jack remembers to turn his microphone on.
Yes,
he's been on by now.
I thought there might be a three-way race.
I lost you for the
Okay.
majority. I lost you for the start of that, but I'm going to interpret that as I was somewhere close at the start of the race. It might have been a three-way race.
That's the one I was going for.
It was possibly going to be that way, and I was trying to keep on the back of them. But it was great fun watching Paul make his car as wide as possible, and he does that in the real life as well. He can make a small car extremely wide, and yeah, it was great fun. But eventually they started getting with me, and then I just dropped it coming out onto the pit straight again and spun again, all of my own doing. But yeah, good battle back through Sam and Kenny to get back to third. So.
I was going to say, the fact that you are maybe making a few mistakes, but you are able to get back into third place 2 races in a row, must be quite sort of satisfying to know that you're in a good place in terms of the pace of the car and everything like that going into the next couple of championships.
Yeah, definitely. It's my old Logitech crapped out a couple of times and lost all resistance in it a couple of times. So it may be time for a new one. But yeah, I'm making progress. Slowly getting there.
Well, I'm sure Rich can be able to facilitate a new wheel or anything like that you may be looking at. But a big congratulations, Chris, on the double third place. Hopefully we'll be speaking to you at Silverstone.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, so great to hear from our top 3 in the pair of classes, and there's one more award to give out. He's not here to take it, but we heard from him a little bit earlier on after his win in race 1. Jay Warren, it has been decided, will claim the Driver of the Round award for this penultimate round of the championship. So big congratulations to Jay on that one. Right then, Jack, more fun things coming everyone's way here at the VRRC, including the aptly named Fun Race.
Yes, it is, and we're doing aerials by the looks of it, and we're going to be doing it around the which circuit are we doing it around? Red Bull Ring. There we go. It's right down there at the bottom. I was trying to recognise the circuit by the picture, to be honest, but yeah, it's a great little car. One of the cars that I haven't actually ever been able to master. There's a big long list of that, to be fair. But it's a fun car anyway. The Red Bull Ring is an awesome circuit as well. Whenever we race there, it's amazing, to be honest. I'm sort of hoping we go back there at some point soon or some point next year. Maybe obviously not in the mini championship, but hopefully another one. Because it is really cool. So if you want to get involved with the fun race, 8 p.m. on Sunday, this Sunday coming, Sunday the 17th. And it is free for everyone. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to. You could just be watching this, and you could just fancy you go with it. And off you go into the fun race. And of course, there's the time attacks as well. And the Formula Jedi F1000 at Oulton Park, a throwback car, and around what is really a bit of a throwback track. I know we still race it and everything like that, but you don't often race the longer formula. And it is one of the sort of, if you built Oulton Park now, Andy, I don't think it would come out the same way, would it? It's a fantastic circuit for many historical reasons, and it's awesome in one of these little single-seaters.
Yeah, especially on the full international circuit, that run through Island Bend and Shell in a car with a bit of downforce is a lot of fun, I would imagine. So yeah, if you want to join in the fun, then get yourself into the servers for the time attack over the next couple of weeks, because as you said, it only started a couple of days ago. In the meantime, more broadcast action coming your way, because we'll be back next week for the final round of the VRRC Porsche Cup. We're heading to the home of British Motor Racing, to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for the final 2 races. Like we said, Carl Felvers, I think, has now wrapped up the Cup Class Championship, but he'll still be desperately trying to end his season with another race win or 2. And we will also have an interesting battle within the Caymans as well, as Ben Smith tries to get his championship across the line. For now, though, big thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, as always, to Jack, to Rich, to everyone who has been in the commentary booth over the course of the evening to have a chat. We'll all be back again for the final time next week.